Okay, looks like we're starting to see some good numbers joining now, so we will make a start. Some of you guys may have already received a notification of the recording of this webinar. Unfortunately, that was just us making sure that the tech side of things is working. So if you have received that, you can ignore it. The recording of this will be circulated after the event. So as I said, thank you to everyone that's joined today. My name's Grant. I'm the Director of Sales for 1,5 Australia. And the intention of today's session is to provide a little bit of clarity of the state of the market right now, a little bit of information about the cheaper home batteries program, which is obviously a hot topic for everybody in the industry, and also lift the curtain on VPPs and wholesale energy plans, as they are a very big point of discussion at the moment. So what we'll do in today's session is we will go through the presentation, and we have a small video to watch in a moment to introduce you to who we are and what our mission is in the industry. And then we will take you through step by step and hopefully finish today's presentation with everybody feeling a little bit more educated than when they started. The chat function and the ability to speak has been disabled within the presentation, but we are looking for any questions if possible. For those of you that are tech savvy enough, down the bottom of your screen, you will see 9 dots. You hover over that and it says meeting tools. And then within those meeting tools, there is the ability for a Q&A. So what we will be doing is towards the end of the session, we'll be taking all of those questions, picking the 3 most commonly asked topics and then trying to deal with those live at the end of the session. However, for anybody that still has additional questions, we will be able to then collate those and come back to you with a one-on-one session and hopefully answer a lot of those questions. So without any further delays, we'll jump into an introduction of 1,5 and our mission in Australia, and then we'll get into the meaty stuff.
The power of Mother Nature is abundant. It's all around us. Our mission at 1K5 is to harness this and revolutionise the energy market in Australia. We want you to live on the power of sunlight and wind forever, for free. That's why we've developed New Energy. New Energy will provide the cleanest, cheapest electricity for you, thanks to the intelligence of Heartbeat AI. It observes the live energy market and optimises your solar, battery and key appliances electricity usage. Your New Energy experience is powered by local teams of experts who leverage the global strength of 1K5. 7 countries, 2,200 team members, over 300,000 installations. $14 million tonnes of CO2 saved. So take control and leave old energy behind with 1K5, the heartbeat of new energy.
Excellent, very exciting. So that's a little bit about who we are. What we'll talk through now is just very quickly what we're actually going to cover off today and hopefully what we're going to get out of the discussion. I've already seen a question in the chat, what is VP or what are VPPs? That's actually one of the main topics of today's discussion, so we'll definitely answer that one at least. So what we'll do is we'll run through how the wholesale energy market actually works. Think of this as the problem that we have that we're trying to solve. We'll run through virtual power plants or VPPs and wholesale energy plants and what the solution to those problems are. We'll run through the cheaper home batteries program and obviously explain a little bit of detail of exactly what that is and also what to look out for. Do batteries make financial sense? That's always been a very big topic as a solar business. You know, customers see the benefits of solar systems, but do batteries make sense economically? So we'll discuss that. And then some battery pricing and stock predictions. Obviously, that's a big topic at the moment, and I'm sure you guys will have lots of questions about that. And then we'll get into an exclusive offer just for you guys for sitting and listening to me talk for what's hoping to be 45 minutes, and hopefully you can understand it given the accent. So we'll dive straight in. How the wholesale energy market actually works. And the reason that we wanted to talk through this is it's important that we understand that the problem that we're facing before we even start talking about the solution. There's a lot of information on the screen. Don't worry too much about that right now. I will explain this in a moment. But essentially, our electricity market is governed by supply and demand. So most people will sign up to an electricity provider, they pay the bill, and that's as far as it goes. But what we don't understand is there's a very complex marketplace, if you like, an equation that sits behind the standard electricity market. And it's really governed by two main things. The first of those is the energy that's generated. And if you look at the image on the screen, I'll use the ability to highlight that. That is the various different generation tools or generation assets that we have available to the market. That could be fossil fuel, it could be nuclear if it's available, hydro, solar and wind. And obviously we want to focus as much as possible on that renewable aspect. And then we have the electricity demand. That's it, the other side of the equation. How much electricity is consumed within the market and when it's consumed. So we have that real supply and demands equation that needs to be solved. And that then dictates how the electricity market is run. So as you can see in this scenario, think of it like a bath. It's the easiest analogy to explain it. What the electricity market is trying to do is balance and keep the water at a certain depth or the amount of electricity at a consistent amount. We have electricity coming in, or in this analogy, we have the water coming in from the taps, and then we have the demand or the electricity being taken out, or in this instance, the various different drains. And it's important that that baseline level is maintained. I think a lot of people will have heard the word baseline electricity rate on the news when we talk about South Australia hitting 100% renewables and that baseline level being smashed again. And what that means is, we are constantly driving the demand levels through the middle of the day down. That creates a problem when we start looking at how our electricity markets actually work. So if we look at the problem itself, again, lots on the screen. I will talk you through that in a moment, so don't worry too much. But you may or may not have heard of the electricity duct or the duct demand curve, or shortened, as we like to do in Australia, to the duct. Essentially, what we have is, if we look over a 24-hour period, which is that section on the left here, we have a change in the demand and supply imbalance over the last 15 or 20 years as more renewables have been added to our grid. And what we're finding is that through the middle of the day, as more and more renewables are added to the grid, the generation capabilities increase. We have a lot of clean, cheap and free electricity. And then we also see that at the start and the end of the day, those high demand periods, there is a real imbalance in supply. So when the sun goes down and it's not as windy, we see that the demand increases, and unfortunately the generation just doesn't keep up. So if we look at the original slide, we had various different types of generation. As more and more solar has been added to the grid, there is simply too much unused solar generation or energy, and that's then driving the price of electricity through the middle of the day down. If we look at the graph on the right-hand side of the screen, we can actually see how that supply and demand imbalance is translated to the cost, and that's then dictated on what we call the spot market. So through the middle of the day, you will see that as the curve has worsened, the price of electricity is dropping below that baseline, and that's when we start seeing negative prices in the market. And as the media have coined it, that's when we start talking about terms like the sun tax. So for everybody on the call that already has solar, I'm sure you would have seen over the last few years that the feed-in tariff that you've been receiving for the electricity that you send back to the grid has been dropping. Way back when solar was first announced and rolled out, the incentives were 44 cents and 50 cents a kilowatt hour for export. We're now seeing in some states that's well and truly below the 5 cents a kilowatt hour. And there's nothing sinister behind that other than the fact that we have too much electricity in that middle of the day, and it makes no sense to pay high feed-in tariffs for that. But what we do still have is a high demand at these periods and then high cost. And we spoke about that spot market a moment ago. That's governed. Over the last few years, we've actually seen the governing bodies have to step in that spot market and cap the power prices because generators are asking just too much for electricity, and that's causing a lot of problems. And we're starting to see things like time of use tariffs come in, and the cost of electricity in these peak periods, particularly at dinner time when everybody gets home from work and starts cooking and cleaning and heating and cooling the homes, the cost of electricity is skyrocketing. That's obviously putting a lot of pressure on the market. And what I believe is one of the biggest reasons why we're now starting to see this battery subsidy is obviously to get as much storage in the market as possible, soak up as much of this free or cheap electricity here, and move that to these peak periods here where people can actually use it. So make use of when the generation is there, make it more accessible for when the demand is there. So we have covered a lot of information in that section. Obviously, it's really just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the information. After this session, there will be an opportunity to have individual conversations with one of our energy specialists if you'd like to discuss the energy market in more detail. But to summarize the problem that we have, the spot market or the wholesale energy market coordinates the wholesale supply and demand using pricing. The pricing tells us if there's too much or too little generation, when to turn on the taps, and the types of assets that the grids is leveraging, which taps are turned on. Thankfully, for most of us, the cleanest electricity is also the cheapest electricity. So the more we can make use of that renewable energy, the better it's going to be on everybody's pockets, which is the long-term goal, the cheapest and cleanest electricity. So summary, generators compete to sell that electricity. Bids are sorted from the least to the most expensive. Power sources are engaged in order of that cost until the supply equals the demand, and the last bid sets the price for the wholesale market. So it's a very, very complex equation that's happening behind the scenes. And then finally, your energy provider uses this to calculate their retail pricing, and that's where they add their piece on top. So this is really the old energy model. It's a fixed price cost. You pay regardless of what time you buy electricity. And as you can see, a lot of the big energy companies are making a lot of money out of this. And the goal is to try and put a lot of that cost back or keep a lot of that money in your pockets. So how do we access the wholesale energy market? What are the benefits of that? And what are the key things that we have to consider when we are accessing that wholesale energy market? It starts with the right energy plan. There's no point in having a standard retail plan if you're wanting to take advantage of new energy. And then it also, you have to have the right product. You have to have a battery and solar system that's able to integrate with VPPs. That's a smart product, if you like, and can actually buy and sell when the time is right. So if we look at what is a VPP, there's a lot of industry jargon. I've been in the industry for a good amount of time now, and there's still acronyms that I don't have a clue what they mean. A VPP is a virtual power plant. Think of a power plant as something that supplies power when needed. Well, a virtual power plant does that, but instead of having centralized assets, it has connections to multiple batteries up and down the East Coast or across the country in some cases. And when the demand is high in the market, those assets or those storage systems in most cases are called upon to supply energy to the market, and that then monetizes the storage system. So the electricity that you sell out of the battery or that the energy companies sell out of that battery is then used to prop up the grid, and the owner of the battery is then paid for that. Now, there's a lot of benefits to VPPs. There's also a lot of good VPPs out there. I would argue there's probably some not so good VPPs, but that's for you guys to make that decision on your own. The benefits of VPPs are that they do allow you to monetize some of that excess electricity in the storage, and it also props up the grid and supports a network that is increasingly more unstable because of that supply and demand imbalance. I did see a question pop up in the chat there, some of the pitfalls of VPPs. I wouldn't necessarily say there's any disadvantages or pitfalls. But what we do hear from time to time is that people don't like giving up the control of their battery. some of the VPPs that are out there, you essentially have no control over when energy is sold and how much for. You get a flat amount regardless of what the spot price is, and you don't have a choice of when that energy is going out. So if you would prefer to use that energy in your home, and the market dictates that the price is right to do this, and the retailer dictates that the time is good to sell it because they're going to make a profit, that energy is sold. In most cases, you are going to be better off regardless, because if you have to buy that energy back, say first thing in the morning, you are in a position where you're paying less than what you sold it for. But again, it's that control element that people really don't like to give up. It's one of the reasons why people add storage to their homes, is to have complete control over the energy, and not have to rely on third parties like retailers or energy companies. But there's, in my view, a lot more positives than the alternative with a virtual power plant. It's just about making sure you have the right one. So there is a standard virtual power plant, which is, your retailers will dictate the terms of that. The price is fixed and you have no control. And then there is wholesale energy, such as amber for batteries. So amber for batteries has been a very big part of the transition to renewables. We've been partnering with amber for quite some time now, and helping customers access their unique offering. Make sure that customers have access. But essentially what amber do is they take the standard retail plan, they turn it on the head, and they give customers direct access, essentially cutting out the middleman to the wholesale energy market. Now, what that means is you experience the highs and the lows of the wholesale energy market. You do have to be fully aware that there is access to really high prices. That's a good thing when you have a battery, and you can take advantage of that. There is also a slight risk of you paying high prices, so it's important that you size your solar and battery systems accurately for that. It gives you the ability to top up your batteries when the grid is cheap and green, and we've seen cases of people charging the cars and actually getting paid to do that when the electricity price is a negative. But what's most important is Amber actually have a fully automated option called SmartShift, where it's essentially a set and forget scenario. You still have the ability to control your battery in the rare event that you want to, which you can see down here at the bottom of the image. But in most cases, you're actually in a position where you are leaving the smarts, if you like, the intelligent piece, to do what it does. And you can actually start seeing some really, really good results from that. Now, when we put this presentation together, we looked at what examples we might include in this, because we've got some incredible results for a lot of customers. We're seeing customers in some cases generate hundreds of dollars in a single event when the market spikes and prices are very high. But that is the exception. And we have to talk about the average on this. For the average size battery with the average results, we're still seeing incredible results. And the two screenshots on the screen there is, you can see on the left, a customer earning $4.20 in one event, and then on the right hand side, a fantastic result of $61. So if you look at that over an entire calendar year, $4 a day, $60 a day, it's going to be a significant result over that period, whilst also reducing your electricity costs. So again, you can see here, those peak times, the price is low when the sun's shining, and it's high when the sun's gone down, and there's a lot of demand. Having a decent battery, a decent sized battery system, and the right energy plan to optimize that, is you can soak up or take advantage of this cheap electricity here, and then either use it and save yourself from the prices, or even sell it back to the grid. So it means you have full control if you want it, set and forget if you don't, and a very big potential for actually turning your storage system into a revenue generating asset, as well as removing the fixed cost of electricity. Again, disclaimer with that, everybody's situation is different, and it's important that you discuss it with the consultant or a specialist to understand your unique situation and look at how your home usage energy. There's a lot of things to take into account, but on average, what we're seeing is a fantastic upside for customers that are using it the right way, and it's really what the mission is to revolutionize the Australian energy market. We do that via fantastic plans, dynamic energy plans, and then also by making sure that we have the right product. Now, there are a lot of good products out there in market, There's a lot of fantastic products coming to market. There's also a lot of products that I would consider in neither of those two camps. So make sure you're doing your research when you are looking to add storage. But the key things that you need to make sure you are looking at when you add a storage system, essentially to make sure you are ready for the future, is it's VPP ready. It's one of the big topics on the Cheaper Home Batteries program, is making sure that the hardware that you're adding to the home is ready for the future. Not only ready, but optimized for high performance. So there's a lot of products that have limitations on the amount they can charge and discharge, on the speed in which they can do that, and how easy it is for the integration with certain wholesale energy plans. So make sure that the products that you do select are ready for the future. You want to have blackout protection where possible, and a good amount. There's been products in the market in the past that have had only the ability to back up just a lighting circuit, whereas we're now starting to see products that have the ability to back up most of, if not all of your home in the event of a blackout. Obviously, you wouldn't want to be using three-phase air conditioners or something in a blackout, because it's going to drain your battery very quickly. But it does mean people have got control and the ability to choose what to use in a blackout and when, and really live comfortably in some of those prolonged blackout periods. In my opinion, stackable and modular design is crucial. In the past, we've had quite large single sized batteries. That presents a problem when you're trying to scale or grow with your energy usage. Having a stackable modular design means you can actually increase the size of your battery when and as is needed. And then a huge part is the warranty, and making sure that your battery has at least 10 years of warranty. If you can get more, then fantastic. The longer it's warranted, the more you have a guarantee of a return. 10 years is the real minimum. And also look to see what sort of warranty conditions they are. Is it warranted under a VPP? Is it possible to have multiple charges? Is there a set cycle warranty, if you like? So make sure all of that is something you look at. And then finally, the long-term support, and it's been a very big thing in our industry for a long time, is make sure that not only the company that installs the product, but also the manufacturer have legs and the ability to stand by for such a long time to look after the warranties. Because the product itself is really only the tip of the iceberg, and what's below the surface is the most important thing. How's it going to be installed? How's it going to be looked after? And most importantly, are you going to be supported long term as you make the transition to full electrification? The good news for us and for you is that we have a product that fits all of those points and more. So we have our own product in market. I'm not going to do the whole sales pitch on why it's the best. We'll leave that for after, if you do speak to one of our specialists. But the product that we brought to market is specifically designed for wholesale optimization and comes with a 12-year product warranty and cycle warranties to match. So make sure if you do decide to do storage and you don't do it with us, the product meets these two things, because this is a significant investment and it's gonna support you for years to come. So now we understand the problem and the solution. Let's talk about the Cheaper Home Batteries program. So far, it's been an incredible change in the market dynamics. The Labour government have put a fantastic rebate program in place and leveraged a historic program that's done a very good job of transitioning to renewables. And the goal of this is, I believe the stats are to try and have 1 million batteries connected to the electricity grid by 2030. 2030 seems like a long way away. It's not that far at all. And there are also discussions around the length of the program, but let's not worry about too much about the opinions or the speculation for now. Let's just focus on what the program actually is and the goal of the program. So it is intended to help participating households, businesses and community organizations reduce their electricity bills by making the most of cheap and clean solar power by storing it for when it's needed. So the goal is to get as many batteries connected as possible to soak up all of that cheap and clean electricity and then use it at those peak times instead of what we've been doing, which is relying on very expensive fossil fuels. Now, the program itself has been advertised as being up to 30% of the overall cost of the installation. And reading the official Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Waters website, it is marketed as being around about 30% of the overall cost of the battery. Now, for anybody on this call that's in the industry, we've been through this before. We've seen a lot of cheap prices out there, a lot of systems that aren't going to go the distance. And if we look at the 30% piece, I would assume that the Labour government have done a significant amount of market research, making sure that the information that's put out there is accurate. And that 30% figure is crucial, because if you are getting quotations or proposals and the rebate portion seems to be a significantly higher amount than 30% of the product, there's a good chance that it would indicate that something is being missed and some corners are being cut. So make sure if you do this, you do it right. Generally, good is not cheap and cheap is not good in terms of the outcome of the system. The entire program is designed to make the product cheaper, not cheap. So make sure you look at that. The program is designed and available for batteries that are connected to new and existing PV systems. So you have to have a solar system on site or be adding a solar system to claim the rebate. It's based on the battery's usable capacity. So there's a few brands out there that market their products as being a certain capacity, but when you actually look at the usable capacity, it's much smaller, and the rebates associated with the usable capacity, not the marketed capacity. It's based on a number of STCs. So STCs are a certificate that have been used to provide rebates for a long time. It's what has accelerated solar in Australia, and we now have the largest or the most saturated market in terms of solar. We have the largest adoption rate per capita of solar of anywhere in the world, and it's largely due to the generous rebate schemes that have been put in place. So STC stands for a small scale technology certificate, and that generates a rebate. I won't go into too much detail on that because it can get complicated, and that's administered under the Small Scales Renewable Energy Scheme. Now, the Small Scales Renewable Energy Scheme is what was put in place way back when the first solar rebates were announced, and the battery rebates are being offered under the same scheme. What we're seeing so far is they're doing a fantastic job. It's very simple to navigate. It's easy to get those rebates claimed, and there are no delays or complications like there have been in some other schemes that have been out recently. So far, so good. The scheme's going really, really well. And it is set to gradually decrease between the launch date of the 1st of July and 2030. So what happens with STCs, with the solar and with batteries, on January 1st, the value of that rebate drops, and that means that you actually get less covered. So the time to do this is now. It sounds corny and salesy, but there is no better time to do this than now. It's the perfect opportunity to make a significant dent in the cost of the product and ideally wipe out those electricity costs. So the program so far has been incredibly successful. The next thing people want to know is, do batteries make financial sense for solar owners in 2025? And if you're hoping for a very detailed and complex slide on the next screen that gives you all of the answers to that question, unfortunately, I can't give it specifically for you. What I can say that on the whole, batteries are an incredible investment right now. They are making significant differences to electricity costs across the country. The rebate is making a massive dent in the cost of those. And then when you add in things like those wholesale energy plans and the ability to turn a credit over the year, they are more economically viable than ever before. Every person's situation is unique though. So if you would like that question answered specifically for you, I would urge you to speak to one of our specialists after this. You'll have an invitation to do so at some point over the coming days to sit down, look at your electricity costs, your home's consumption, and what the investment may look like. But if I was to answer this with a yes or no question, the answer is yes. We are seeing return on investment on batteries now dropping well below that 5 and 6 year mark in some cases. And when you have a warranty of 10 or even 12 years like our products, in my view, that's a no-brainer. But I'm sure you'd be surprised if I felt differently. So let's talk after this. Let's get into the specifics and answer a few more questions once we have the individual situation. So if we then look at the next piece is battery pricing, stock predictions, and what to expect in the months ahead. Now, I don't have a crystal ball. I wish I did. I'd be a very, very wealthy man if I did. But in my view, the best way of predicting the future is by looking at the past. So if we look at what we're seeing in market, and that is seeming to mirror a lot of the information that's been put out there in the last 12 months, and particularly in the last 3 months, we're seeing an increased demand for battery-only systems of over 400%. Now, that's quite a significant figure. As a company, we are actually one of the largest battery installers in the country. If you look at the Sunwiz reports, we're number one in several of the major states and number two nationally. And for our demand to have increased from a baseline that was already quite significant, it's a fantastic indication. The increase in battery sales year on year is increasing over 350%. So the demand is definitely there. And one thing that is really, really interesting for us is when the Cheaper Home Batteries program was announced, all of the figures, the length of the program, the average battery size was all calculated based on the average 10 to 12 kilowatt hour battery. So far since the launch of the program, we're actually seeing an average battery size of 27 kilowatt hours, which is 2.5 times almost the expected average. And what that could potentially indicate is that the rebate will be accessed 2.5 times quicker. Now, there is a lot of speculation in market, and unfortunately I can't give you a straight yes or no on this. The scheme has been announced as uncapped, but it has also been given a figure of 2.3 billion. Numbers that I'm doing just on the back of a napkin are that the program's going to be very successful, and the speed in which that this rebate is used is going to be incredibly quick. So again, if you're going to do this now, do it as quickly as you can, providing it matches your financial position, because it's going to make a big difference to the overall cost of your electricity bills, but also accessing the rebate. Now, I did just see a question pop up there. Can the rebates be accessed again? This is a one-time only rebate, so go as big as you can the first time around. Modular batteries can definitely be increased in the future, as well as non-modular batteries you can add additional batteries to. But once you've claimed the rebate once, you can't then claim it a second time. So if you only need a 16 kilowatt hour battery now, but you have the budget and the ability to go larger than that, I would recommend you do, if there's plans for you to then grow those electricity needs in the future, because there's only one time. Do it once, do it right, pick the right company, the right product, and go as big as you can, because it's going to make a big difference long term. That takes us on to that. Will this program really last until 2030? I hope so. It's been a fantastic program so far. What I can say though is we've already seen some battery rebates that have been taken away or finished earlier than predicted. Most notably the New South Wales battery rebate. So there's nothing set in stone, nothing is certain other than what is there today. So if you are thinking about doing this, again, I would recommend we do it now. Apologies. And with the increased demand, increased battery sizes, the stock over the last few months has been getting much more complex to acquire, and it's only set to look a little more difficult. It's going to get worse before it gets better. So one of the big things to make sure that you are asking when you're dealing with companies is, it's all well and good me locking this in now, but I would like an installation date. When can this be installed? Because there's a lot of companies out there that are taking deposits and locking in orders, but they don't have access to the stock, and they may not for several months. I'm happy to announce that we have a significant amount of stock onshore for our own products and can install quickly. So if you are looking to do this and you want to make a decision, we'd be happy to help. But again, I won't go too deep on that today. So yeah, in summary, the moment to act is now. The best time to do it is now. And I would recommend, if you have specific questions about size, price, installation timeframes, compatibility, all fantastic questions, write them down, talk to one of our specialists, and let's get you the answers and solve the problem for you. So that's hopefully all of the topics covered off. Why would you deal with us? Why would you listen to the information that's been given today? Who are we? And what what makes us different? Well, we are aiming to be the heartbeat of new energy in Australia. And the vision for us as a business, as for many people, is Australians to live on sunlight and wind forever for free by providing access to the cleanest and most affordable electricity possible. And thankfully, those two things are actually the same thing. So having cheap electricity is also clean electricity. Now, people ask us a lot, what does 1,5 mean? Why is it spelled with a K? Well, 1,5 mean actually translates to 1.5 degrees. We are owned or founded as a brand in Germany, and it speaks directly to the Paris Climate Agreement, preventing a further global temperature rise of 1.5 degrees. Whether you do or don't believe in global warming, we have a responsibility to shift how we consume energy, and thankfully, it also means that you are going to save money. You're going to be cheaper as well as cleaner. So why not? We're a one-stop shop. So there's a lot of companies in Australia that do have one speciality. They do solar, they do battery, they do retail or energy plans. We do everything. So we provide our own products. We offer solar, battery, EV chargers. We do have the ability to do heat pumps and air conditioning in some states. We have home optimization, partnerships with wholesale energy plans. And what's more exciting, if we look at what we're already doing as a business in the European markets and overseas, is we are actually an energy retailer that can provide dynamic energy tariffs, which really completes the full suite of product installation, service, maintenance, and then retail plans. So that real point of difference. And it all comes down to that optimization. So I'm seeing a lot of talk on the chat and people that are interacting with our business is we are aiming to be a one-stop shop. So we have our own energy management platform and app overseas called Heartbeat. It will be coming to Australia very, very soon. So for those of you that are interested, the way that you will access that is by making sure you have the right setup. That's the right battery and solar system first. And then Heartbeat will definitely revolutionize the market. It's currently the largest energy management platform in Germany. And the goal is to bring that to Australia and to revolutionize the Australian energy market. So we'll talk more about that in a moment. As mentioned, we will have an exclusive offer for attendees that will be sent out after this. So please do take a look at your inboxes and make sure you are aware of what's been sent out this afternoon. We want to try and make it as easy and as affordable as possible for you to access the largest battery as soon as possible. That will be sent out along with recordings a little later today. And yeah, that's essentially the information. It's what we wanted to talk through today. And we do have some questions. So these are questions that have been taken out of the chat today. Some of the ones that seem to top up or pop up most frequently in the chat. So we'll talk through these now and answer them in a little bit more detail. And then we can go from there. And I think it's crucial. I just saw a question pop up there. Can we assist with sizing of the battery? Absolutely. It's one of the most important things that we believe we have an obligation to do as a retailer or as an installer of these products. It's not just install a product because that's the one you wanted to buy. Make sure that the system that's installed matches your consumption both now and into the future. That's a very big piece of that. So questions. We have a 16-panel solar system, which is about 14 years old. Can we effectively add a battery without replacing the panels and inverter? That's not completely a yes or no question, but the easy answer is yes. You do have the ability to add a battery alongside an existing system by doing something called AC coupling. That essentially means that you add a battery alongside the current grid-tied inverter, and the battery interacts and becomes the master within that scenario. What you do have to consider though is whereabouts you are situated in the country. There are a lot of different regulators or DNSPs who dictate how much electricity generation can be connected to the grid. So short answer yes, long answer yes, but let's talk a little bit more after this because you may also need a little bit more solar to charge a battery that's big enough to then offset your needs. If you have a battery Can you pull in power and fill your battery during the day when the power is cheap? Absolutely. So some products out there can actually we call it force charging. So within the software, you get the monitoring platform, you can actually set to charge through the middle of the day. There are some energy plans that are maybe not even VPPs that give free electricity in the middle of the day, because retailers are starting to cotton on now that it's better to drag customers in by offering them free electricity in the middle of the day and then charge them a fortune at night. So yes, you can either manually do that, or if you have a smart plan and a smart battery, like say SmartShift and one of our products, then you can actually set and forget, and the system will look after you. Do you need a large battery for the real benefits? We have 10 kilowatt hours. Well, I suppose that you need to define what the real benefits are. The first benefit of having a battery is that you're not buying energy from the grid. So if you have a battery that's large enough to offset your usage outside of the solar generation, then in my view, that's already a win. But customers with larger batteries and larger inverters are the ones that are seeing the best results from wholesale energy plans. So again, bigger is definitely better when it comes to storage systems, for sure. Is labor cost included in warranty? In most cases, yes, manufacturers do supply a cost of labor. There are some warranties out there that might say things like 5+5, which is 5 years parts and labor, and then 5 years just parts. So it depends on the product. Make sure you speak to the specific installer or manufacturer, and then we can go from there. Are electric cars able to be integrated in VPP and home energy battery solution? Absolutely. So there are things coming in the future like vehicle to grid or vehicle to load. There's a lot of now and still some regulatory changes needed to make it completely available, but there's already plans going live, which is very exciting. Through Amber, if you do have a smart charger and you have the right plan, then you can access their EV mode, which will then leverage that. And we have had examples of customers that have been charging their car from the grid when the price is negative 3 or 4 cents, and they're actually getting paid to charge their car, which is pretty exciting. Do you get more than 30% off for bigger batteries with more rebate value? Well, it's more, I don't want to call it free cash because it's not, but you receive a bigger rebate for the larger batteries. So the rebate goes all the way up to 50 kilowatt hours, meaning you're going to get more rebate, i.e. more offset, the bigger the battery that you go. But that 30% figure is relatively consistent. What we're seeing, though, unfortunately, is there are a lot of companies out there necessarily not doing the right thing, selling really, really big products with low-end product quality, low-end installation quality, and the rebate's actually offsetting significantly more than 30% of the overall cost of the product. In my views, that simulates a risk and should be a big red flag. There's a lot of big companies that have just popped up to take advantage of this rebate, similar to what happened initially in the solar boom. So make sure any company you deal with has got longevity, they've got history, ideally been around before rebates were even a thing, so that they have the experience to sort of ride the solar coaster, if we like to call it, because it is a very turbulent market and there's a lot of reasons for people to not do the right thing. So make sure that 30% figure is a great indication of a company that's pricing a product fairly with longevity in mind. Can your batteries be upsized in years to come? Absolutely. So the storage, the benefits of having a modular battery is you can add battery modules to it down the line, and there's no impact on the warranties. It can be added very easily, so you can scale as needed. But again, the rebates are one-time only thing, so as big as possible now is definitely the best advice. And do you offer PV and battery packages? Absolutely. Not only are we one of the largest battery installers nationally, but we're also one of the largest solar companies with an incredible amount of solar and battery already deployed in the market. So, without signing off and sounding too corny, there really is nobody else better out there to answer those questions. So please, after this, if you see the opportunity to speak to one of our specialists, please do reach out. And apologies, that's a really good question to finish there. What is PV? PV is photovoltaic, or it's solar basically. So they call it solar PV. It's the type of generation. If you ever hear PV, it's essentially referring to the solar component of your system. So look, we are out of time there. I would say almost nailed the timing, so congratulations to me. You guys have been awesome. I really appreciate you attending. Hopefully you got some value out of it. And again, keep an eye out for your inboxes later today for some more value. And any of you guys looking forward to helping you on the journey and the transition to renewables, have a wonderful afternoon and speak to you soon.